Hello out there. I'm James Curtis, aka the Pork Chop Express, host and head writer at iHeartSequels.blogspot.com. And we're going to do our very first video episode of a series that I've been running as a written part of my blog called UNSEQUELIZED, where I talk about films that I've enjoyed that never got a sequel that I would have loved to have seen. I have done 5 or 6 previously written features for Unsequelized. Most of these were films that I grew up watching as a child that I would love to have seen further episodes of, essentially. You can find them on my blog. It's not video content. You're going to have to put up with my writing. I talked about The Last Starfighter, Big Trouble in Little China, Strange Brew, Nightbreed, and Freebie and the Bean. All films that I thought maybe they weren't successes when they came out, but I'd certainly love to have seen more episodes of those films. Clearly, more adventures with those characters. Who wouldn't want to see another episode of Big Trouble in Little China? Some more time spent with Jack Burton. Who wouldn't want to see more strangely hilarious and violent hijinks with Freebie and the Bean? I really would have loved to have seen the kind of world that Clive Barker would have gotten into had he gotten into his Nightbreed sequels. But anyway, you can find those on my blog. They're all there for you to peruse at your leisure. Again, the feature is called Unsequelized, so just look up Unsequelized on my blog. But today, like I said, we're going to do our very first video feature. I'm going to talk about a couple of films, more recent films, that I feel like deserve sequels, one of which may get a sequel eventually, one of which probably won't. It was such a colossal flop that if it ever gets another cinematic iteration, it's going to be in the dreaded reboot category. Something I'm kind of sick of. I'm really nervous about this new Amazing Spider-Man. It just looks completely dreadful, and it seems so wrong-headed, even after Spider-Man 3. But that's something we'll talk about later, because very soon we will try to do a Spider-Man roundtable where we talk about the new film and, of course, Sam Raimi's trilogy. I'm getting off topic here. So let's start with the flop, actually. Let's start with the flop of these two. Summer 2008, everybody was trying to get everybody to go see Iron Man or Dark Knight. I enjoyed both of those films for different reasons. I have problems with both of those films for different reasons. No film is perfect. But those films didn't need cheerleaders. After a while, they just kept being huge moneymakers, and they made a gigantic cultural impact. No one can debate that. I wanted to be a cheerleader for another film that summer that I felt was unfairly maligned, and mostly because it didn't really fit kind of the pop culture paradigm where everything had shifted of late. I'm talking, of course, about the Wachowski brothers' Speed Racer. This is a bright, vibrant, colorful cartoon of a film. The Wachowskis did exactly what they set out to do and did it quite successfully, as far as I'm concerned. This is not a realistic film. It's highly stylized, fairly garish. It's a big, big cartoon. And for that, I think, honestly, people just didn't care to see it. The pop culture paradigm pendulum has swung completely in the direction of dark, violent, realistic films. There's not a lot of fun to be yielded out of that. Not the kind that you get out of Speed Racer, anyways. And that's where you had the success of something like a Dark Knight and Iron Man. Iron Man, of course, is a little fun, but of course it's also set in a very realistic world that we can all kind of see and feel and touch. And maybe I'm being a little reductionist, but I don't think that lately we as pop culture consumers are interested in films that are fanciful, unless they are animated. If Speed Racer had come out as an animated film, probably would have still flopped, but people probably would have been more accepting. But instead, the Wachowski brothers set out to make an incredible pop art masterpiece, created one, and of course were resoundingly slapped down for it. I don't think it deserves the reputation it has. In fact, as I've come to talk to more and more people, I think it's going to be one of the bigger cult films of the last decade. The performances are spot on. The worlds are incredibly realized. It's transcendent. It's one of the few films that actually feels like it can hit a transcendent moment and encapsulate it so perfectly. At the end of the film, Speed becomes something other than human. He goes from being a great racer to something altogether superhuman. And it's a very rare film that can visualize that kind of transcendent moment. That moment where an athlete is at his or her peak performance, where they've transcended greatness and become something godlike. It's fantastic to see on film. Anybody who missed it on the big screen missed something really amazing. And it'd be great to see what else they can do with this. It'd be great to see the further adventures of Speed Racer. As opposed to, say, the adventures of Neo, which after the first Matrix film, maybe I was in the minority, but I didn't really care to see where those films went. I knew what was going to happen pretty much from the word go, or what the problems were going to be from the word go with the last two Matrix films. And I didn't really want to spend more time with that. It was a great origin story, but I didn't think that anything amazing was going to come out of the rest of the Matrix films. And as much as there are things that I like about Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, time has sort of proved my fears correct. They are also getting a critical reassessment from some. They have their defenders, but I'm still in that category of people who thought the Matrix sequels were pretty much a disappointment. But they made money. Speed Racer didn't. We will never see a Speed Racer 2 or 3, at least not directed by the Wachowskis. And like I said, unfortunately, we're probably going to get a Speed Racer reboot 5 years from now, where somebody tries to make a dark, gritty, realistic Speed Racer, which kind of defeats the purpose of doing a Speed Racer film in my mind. So, yes, I would love to see Speed Racer 2 and 3 directed by Wachowski brothers. That's not going to happen. The other film that we're going to talk about today was actually a success, a true success, and it's surprising to me that a sequel has not been released yet, and as far as I know, the development has only really been talked about and not really acted upon. Preface, I'm not a big fan of Platinum Dunes. I thought the Chainsaw Massacre remake was a joke. I thought the prequel to the Chainsaw Massacre remake was a joke. And, Nightmare on Elm Street was an insult. It's a terrible film. Even Jackie Earle Haley couldn't save that fucking movie. It's tremendously awful movie. Painful experience. I did like Amityville Horror, but the original Amityville Horror wasn't as precious to me anyways. And I thought that the Amityville Horror that Platinum Dunes did was fun. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. I would not want to see a Platinum Dunes Amityville Horror. I don't want to see Platinum Dunes presents Amityville 3D. That would just be awful. No, what I'd like to talk about is the 2009 version of Friday the 13th, which I'm a crazy Jason fan. Jason, to me, is America's Godzilla. It's a simple-minded monster that I want to see wreak havoc forever, till the ends of time. And we've seen that through many, many films. And I really enjoyed the Friday the 13th Platinum Dunes film. I know there were a lot of people who didn't, a lot of Jason crazies who didn't. But I guess maybe I'm just a narrow-minded Jason apologist, because I've pretty much enjoyed most of the Jason films. If I didn't enjoy all of them, there was things I enjoyed about each and every one of them. Even the really crappy ones have moments that just leave me laughing or leave me aghast. But I wouldn't even say Friday the 13th, the remake at its worst, is as bad as Friday the 13th Part 3, Part 5, and Part 8. Those, to me, are always going to be the nadir of Friday the 13th films. And I'm surprised that the Friday the 13th Part 2 Platinum Dunes version has not come to fruition. The film was budgeted at less than $20 million, made almost $100 million domestically. It was, by all accounts, a pretty big success. It got a critical thrashing, but horror films usually do, and even Platinum Dunes films within the critical market within the critical consensus have always gotten bad press. But I thought this was a really fun film. I thought that it did a great job of trying to restart and reintroduce the mythology, while also kind of encapsulating the best parts of parts 1 through 4 in a single film to get the character rolling again. I like that they tried to be a little realistic with Jason, but they didn't go so far as to showing Jason taking a shit and eating on his off time. I felt like the logic behind it was sound. I felt like everything that you needed in a Friday the 13th film was there. I honestly, some of the most attractive fucking women I've ever seen in a Friday the 13th film. That's one of the first things that come to mind. But I thought the kills were great. I thought the shocks were there. I was really surprised by the death of what is ostensibly the final girl. I thought she was going to make it. When she dies, I was blown away. It's not a film that takes a lot of risks, but it's very well made. Derek Mears is a very imposing, very scary Jason. And maybe it's just because I don't hold, even though Jason's my favorite slasher character, I don't hold the original Friday the 13th films up as sacred pieces of filmmaking the way I would with, say, Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street or Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like, again, Friday the 13th, Jason is kind of like Godzilla. You know, it really comes down to what you as a filmmaker bring to the table that makes Jason great, and not so much Jason himself. And, you know, Friday the 13th, the remake, was not going to kill Jason. The guy had pretty much gone through incredible reiterations over and over again. He'd been in space, he'd been resurrected from the dead, he'd fought a girl with telekinetic powers. You know, Jason has done quite a lot, and a Platinum Dunes remake felt like a nice way to get the ball rolling back into some just straight up old fashioned slasher stuff. Kind of like what My Bloody Valentine did from, I believe, the same year. And I thought between those two films, it was going to be a way for them to start getting into some really old-fashioned slasher stuff again. That wasn't as self-aware, but that was still a lot of fun. Since then, there's been no action whatsoever on a Friday the 13th Part 2 presented by Platinum Dunes. I'd really like to see it. Probably not going to happen, at least not right away. I think Platinum Dunes is going to be struggling a lot now that they seem to want to go into the Ninja Turtles business, and then they backed out of that. So I don't know what's in the future for Platinum Dunes, but of all the things they did, I would love to see them keep working with Jason, or somebody work with Jason. Nothing's happening with my man. So that's it for Unsequelized. I will be doing future episodes of this. I've got some other features I'm going to start doing video versions of. You can always look at my blog, look at what I've written. If there's anything you want me to talk about or anything you want me to debate about, you can always email me. I will read emails. I will do talkbacks. I love comments, but I actually love talking in person. So if you've got something you want to talk to me about, let me know, and I will put something together. I will be doing more roundtables. I will be doing more single video discussions. Some things to look forward to. I'm going to be talking about the Alien films still. I'm going to be talking about Batman. I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man. I'm going to be talking about spaghetti westerns. I'm going to be talking about queer film. I'm going to be talking about a lot. So keep your eyes open for more video stuff from I Heart Sequels, from me, James Curtis, the Pork Chop Express. And a final thought. Brave, the Pixar film, was beautiful. I don't know what the hell's wrong with people anymore. Whatever. That's maybe another topic where I actually talk about the hyperbole behind the legacy of Pixar, and how people tend to want to shatter their own dreams. But anyway, this is James Curtis, Pork Chop Express, signing out. See you soon.